Hi, my name is Candice. I live in Japan. I'm having a panic attack, so that's why I have nothing else to do today. And this panic attack is killing me. And it's the middle of the pandemic, I hope, at least. So I was trying to find something to do. And usually I just don't talk. So someone told me, well, all these things are on my mind. Why don't I just, make videos and maybe just start with one chapter at a time, talk about my life, my experience. It's kind of scary. I mean, yes, I'm uh, doing a video on a potato, um, but I just want to talk and hopefully get things out. Like I said, I'm having an anxiety attack. When that happens, my jaw kind of locks up, and it's like I can't talk. It's like somebody put a ball in my throat. So hopefully, um, just talking about my life a little bit, day by day, or whenever I feel like it. Maybe one day I'll come back and look at it and be like, okay, this makes sense. Why, you felt this way or you did things a certain way. So, Happy New Year. It's 2023. Anyway, so yes, my name is Candice. People call me Candy here. I'm from the States. I'm from California, San Diego. And I'm an elder millennial. Mm, I've been in Japan for 10 or 11 years now. And I still don't speak fluent Japanese, but it's a long story behind that. I'm interested in anthropology, or was. That's what I studied in college. And hopefully I'll come back to tell the story as how to, I like the reasons why I got interested in anthropology. I only have a bachelor's. But as you can imagine, for a lot of us millennials who graduated during the recession, thinking about going back to grad school, especially those of us who are first generation, um, and looking at the things that we owe, and the things that we aren't privileged to have that will help boost us up and get us along further. We have to make decisions, you know. So that's that. Anyway, I'm from San Diego, California, and we're basically right next to Mexico. So I grew up in a very multicultural society, and I also grew up in what I would consider the last of, you know, the outside play generation. And every generation is the last of something. But I truly believe, like, us millennials, we were at the cusp of, like, okay, we're playing outside and getting scars and stuff like that. And then it came to, like, where it's like, wait, we're on the computer now. And the way we socialize is through ancient things like MSN Messenger, Yahoo Messenger, things like that. So I kind of am in between the worlds, in between both of the worlds. And I miss the former. Like, I miss being able to play outside and socialize and not being so hyper aware of other people's lives or their situations, and just being young. I guess Peter Pan syndrome, where it's like ignorance is bliss. Anyway, San Diego, California. And I guess people would say I'm from the other side of the tracks. Um, I'm the eldest. I have one younger sibling, but I'm also the oldest grandchild that I know of. on both sides of the family. I'm lost. I can't even give my own introduction. Hopefully I get better at this. This is really hard. I'm just trying to get through the night. I was very athletic. I still am. But you know, metabolism, things like that slows down. Very boyish. A lot of my friends were boys. I would consider myself quite sheltered. I guess I'm part of that helicopter generation. It's like I just want to get like a tourism guide, like a tourism video about San Diego. It's not really talking about myself, but I guess the environment that I grew up in. Yeah, the neighbors. You know, our neighbors were Filipino and Mexican and all this other kind of stuff. Japanese, Okinawan, whatever. We got everything over there, so it wasn't weird for us to be like, you know, let's have tacos, or we're gonna have albondigas or whatever. And even my family is like that. We have people who I consider family through marriage or whatever as Mexican. We had Native American or indigenous people in our family. We got all kind of people in our family, you know, so it's not weird. That's just how America is in the history and stuff like that. So that doesn't mean we didn't face problems. I mean, not family, but just in America in general. I think we all know the stories and understanding privilege and discrimination and things like that happen. So I grew up sheltered because the area that I grew up in, you know, probably wasn't the best situation for me to advance my life in, you know, as far as outside and stuff that be happening outside, social pressures and things like that. So I would say that I don't have the best social life even now because it's hard for me to talk or open up to people. So I'm having an anxiety attack right now. I'm almost 40 years old. You know? But anyway, I grew up around the time where we had Pogs and we had Tamagotchis and, you know, we had Toonami and we had the ice cream truck and we had Skip-Its and stuff like that. So even though, you know, a lot of times we didn't have the best financial situation, hopefully we get into that story, you have an understanding, and you like, before social media, you had to use your imagination, so, you know, we did that a lot. And I also like video games, so I was fortunate enough to have systems, like I miss during the good, like really good times, financially, like stable times, there was Christmases, you know, and then we would get like a Sega Genesis or something like that. So I think the first game system that I received was the Genesis, and I loved Sonic. I loved playing Paperboy. I loved playing ToeJam and Earl. Number 2, Panic on Funkatron. I love that kind of stuff. So, like during the apex, the really, really good, like just like stable years, the peak of my childhood was, you know, you go to school, you come home, do your homework, and at 5 o'clock, all the TV shows would come on where, you know, the families would sit around and watch a premiere of a music video or something like that. Or, for example, Star Trek. My dad would watch Star Trek almost every day, The Next Generation, and I'm a Trekkie because of that. And I think, you know, part of that was like the reason why I subconsciously, like, I appreciated different people, and like it had a huge impact on me watching Star Trek. Eventually it turned into things like Toonami and stuff, but you know, those are the good days, Crunchyroll days, you know, Newgrounds, remember that? The LimeWire days. So anyway, let's go back to the Genesis times, like doing your homework and playing a game and having the fortitude to finish a game, because there's no such thing as save files, and you'd be lucky if you get like a password or something to a certain level. It's not like you can just hop on the internet and be like, what was that secret code? And you can't, you have to earn it, you know. So it was for me, it was a time where it's like we had to earn, and our attention span was much longer, you know. Even when it came to things like listening to music, where you had to wait um, for things to come on the radio, and you learn how to record things, and you know, so when you heard the song, it sounded extra good every time, you know. And we also did things like bonsai and stuff like that, which, you know, I give credit to the Karate Kid in the 80s and things like that. And my dad would come home from work and he would do his bonsai. So we were very like multifaceted kind of city with different kind of cultures overlaying on top of each other. And in the 90s, a different kind of culture period, like social culture. So that was the apex. And then there was a time where things kind of got crazy, and I remember my grandmother passed away, and after that, um, it was kind of just like survival mode. So I want to say, like, before I continue, when I talk about things that have impacted me, I'm not necessarily trying to put um, blame on anybody or anything like that. It's just, this is what I experienced, and it has had like a social impact on me and how I think about life and how I think about relationships and things like that. So that's what that's what I'm trying to get at. I'm just trying to, I guess, understand myself by speaking through it, starting with the childhood. So there came a time where it was like the Genesis turned into a PlayStation. It's like my life is in stages by which PlayStation I had, you know. Um, and then for me, it was like Twisted Metal Black. It was Crash Bandicoot. It was Final Fantasy VII, which I'm still playing. I started playing that again today. I have a knack for the old things, so when I see things that remind me of my childhood, I buy it. And we'll talk more about that, I guess, eventually sometime. And, you know, it was perfect because it was like a babysitter when you can't really have like a lot of interaction with parents who are constantly working and stuff like that. All you had was either the internet if it was up that month, you know, or if you had one of those dial-up cars where it's like you get an hour or whatever, or you go up to the library. This is why public libraries are so important. And you'd have like $1 or whatever, and you go up to the public library, and you would, you know, sit in there for like, you could sit there all day long, and you could read books. And then they had music that you would that you could rent, check out, or whatever. And because of that, and the lack of other resources, it's like you have no choice but to be exposed to different kinds of things because it's all that you got. You're not going to Target and buying a CD from, so you know, okay, here's a CD from this guy named Seal. Here's a CD from this woman named Sade. Here's Sting. You know what I mean? Here's, what's it called? Pure Moods or whatever. And so because of it, it was like a forced interaction with things outside of yourself. And so I had um, this fixation on things that were not where I was. It's not that I hated life. It was just, I understand that, people go through things and it's temporary, and there are other things outside of life that you should be wanting to experience. So there's that. Anxiety's starting to go away. I'm so happy. In Japan, we are currently like kind of on vacation. It's the new year, so tomorrow's the last day for me of being off, and then I have to start work again from Tuesday. In Japan, they have very long holiday sessions, which is nice if you work for like certain schools and stuff. Certain companies are really shady, and I'll talk about that later too. Eventually, hopefully. Anyway, 1997 was a crazy year, and that was the year my grandmother passed, and I was playing games that had high replay value because we didn't have the internet, so I knew things from front to back. And it's the same thing when it comes to movies and DVDs and stuff. So if you don't have the internet, you can watch a movie and you watch it over and over again. You know its line, its nuance, all the transitions. You can hear the strings, you can hear, the quartet, you can hear everything, So the ability to pay high attention to stuff was developed because of things like that. So this is kind of like the beginning of my appreciation for like cultural comparisons through film and stuff like that. Like, I see myself. So anyway, and I buried myself in games because, like I said, I really wasn't social, kind of helicoptered, So another reason is why, because I hate talking, I hate telling this story, but it's the truth. I am not that unique, but it's not often where you see people who they have some sort of physical quirk, and because of that, they get teased, and that kind of shapes how you interact with people or how you see people. So for me, it was gray hair. Like, right now I'm kind of covering my stuff. This is a protective style for me because ain't nobody got time for that. I really don't. And for me, I was born with a lot of gray hair, and according to my mom, I guess the doctors was like, they had to check me to make sure I wasn't anemic or something like that. I wasn't. It's just hereditary. But because of something so small like this, and being where I'm from, I hate to say that because I want to talk about being black in society and the tropes and the stereotypes. We'll get into that later, but it's not just black; it's just minority society in general, and the social pressures that there were at the time to be a girl with a perm. You gotta have straight hair in order to be considered acceptable in society. Like, okay, you can pass outside of this because you're not gonna be able to survive. It's almost like it's like puppies in a litter. I wouldn't say crabs in a bucket. It's like puppies in litter, and they fight each other so they make each other stronger. Maybe it's not the best way, but historically, we do things like this to each other, and it's part of like a function. It's a toxic function, but I will never blame us for that, because it's things that we had to do in order to survive that were carried on, and now we get blamed for, which is nuts to me. See, I'm going off a tangent. I'll do this a lot, talking about things like whippings and stuff like that. I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm not saying I disagree with it, but like the stuff that people say about us, oh, you guys are, you guys are animals or savages, because wait a minute, did you not teach us how to do that? And even when we understood it wasn't good for us when it came to things like Jim Crow laws and stuff like that. And if we look at certain people and give them eye contact, that we could possibly die from that. If you have to teach your children in a moment's notice, keep your head down, you're going to do something. You can't stop it. Please don't do that. We don't have the time to do that. So I'm thoroughly shocked at how people can't see those nuances, or like those individual stories where this had to happen in order to stop your child from dying. It's not like we want to do that. The same thing when it comes to conformity, and like, we don't have to, but we understand there's some really disgusting standard out there that says that these people are more desirable, and therefore if you can match their features as best as possible, you could be considered on the outskirts of it. And it's not only that, a lot of the stuff was law. So for example, we had things that, if I'm pronouncing it wrong, please forgive me, but in like Louisiana in the South, they had things called like the Tignon laws, where I can't remember the story. That's what the Googles is for. Go to the Googles and look up these things yourself. But there were laws, for example, in some places that stated, that our hair was unclean or undesirable, or it was a distraction to the male glance, a certain kind of male, and because of that, we had to wrap our hair up. So when it comes to us wrapping our hair up, or creating ways to, tie our hair up, bind our hair up, protect our hair up, because at a moment's notice we're going to have to conform in order to get that job interview, and we'll talk more about that later, because I would say that in Japan, I had to work my, I almost cuss, because I don't know what YouTube is going to do these days. There's another conversation when it comes to things like freedom of speech and stuff like that. That's another conversation. But I had to work my MFing behind off to get the minimal respect, because there's already this preconceived notion. There's an intersectionality is what I'm talking about. Not only in Japan, but other places. First of all, I'm female. Second of all, I'm dark skinned. I hate to go there, but it's the truth. In a lot of cases, it's the visual thing that pops up to people, and they have this preconceived notion that they have to break through, and there is this burden of understanding that that's going to be a thing for you for the rest of your life, and that you have to pull up your credentials and be like, you're looking at me like I'm crazy, but I'm teaching your son, or I'm the one that's coordinating the curriculum, stuff like, it's very exhausting. And so I hope when I come back to this video, because my mind is on tangent, I was talking about childhood, and but anyway, I hope things were fused together, that I come back to this conversation, and it's especially true when it comes to colorism, those kinds of nuances, and the privileges that come with it, I've had to deal with a lot. Let me go back. I'm trying to go back. Because that's how my mind works. Like, that's where I'm at right now. I'm at this point in life where it's just like, I have to take another grand leap. I have to do something to improve my self-resume. And I think that's a part of the disease of being a millennial, is just like growing up, and they put you in these advanced courses and stuff like that. And you're not dumb. I mean, obviously, I was one of those kids. It was like I was the quiet kid. I was the kid I was getting teased, but I was the kid in the gate classes. They call it gate. And then they would like bump you up a year or something like that, or increase the level of whatever. I was that kid. And then the kid that, after that got into the honor system and stuff. I really enjoyed academics. There were some teachers where I was like, like I just like, no matter what I do, you're just gonna be a bum hole to me. You're gonna be a bum hole. Anyway, and then I'm missing a lot, and I'll probably go for story. I'll come back to the childhood. I'll be like, alert, this is a childhood story, and I'll probably try to find a timeline, like, cause my timeline's already jumbled, but they tell us, go to school and this and that, and go to college, and it was true. It was like that's what you're supposed to do. But unfortunately, a lot of us got caught up in that transition where it's like, okay, we got tech, and then on top of that, we had the recession. We were the ones that were in school and saw when the planes hit the tower, and we were the ones that watched it happen. And something in me, even as young as I was, it was like the second or third year of high school, and I was like, nothing will ever be the same. Here I am, and I'm on this trajectory, and I have these courses, and I plan on taking these courses and getting these college credits and stuff like that, because I know, like I said, from my fantasies as a small child, the things that I exposed myself to, I understood that there was something better out there, and I could come back and help or something. Like, I'm not someone who abandons, but I was looking forward to experiencing things outside of life. Like, so when that happened, and I was watching in the classroom, I think it was in history class, ironically, and what's her name? Burwell. I think her name is Miss Burwell. And something in me said, this is going to change everything. And I just knew it. The rest of my high school career, I'm like, there's orange alerts, red alerts, you know what I mean? Like, and I know there's a whole another conversation about living in a first world country and first world country problems. I'm aware of that, you know. You see what I'm doing? I have this thing where it's like I can't just talk about myself. I have to constantly be hyper aware that my problem is not only my problem. And this comes with the territory of being who I am, or who we are. And having to see both sides all the time is super exhausting. But again, because that was one of the first times where we have been attacked on our soil, kind of thing, in recent history. Because as I get older, I realize time ain't nothing. It really, like, tempest fugit for real. So I knew, I was like, we're jacked. Hopefully by the time I graduate, everything will smooth itself out. So it was like, I kind of got okay for a while. And I got accepted into a university. I got accepted to UC Riverside. And I was the first one to go to college, But the thing about it is, I was wise enough to understand, Candace, you're broke. You're broke, and there's not a lot of generational wealth going around right now. So I made a decision, despite the fact that I got accepted, to a couple. I'm not about to pay, and this sounds cheap now, like $3,000 a semester for a dorm room. Well, what you gonna do? I'm gonna stay here. Well, dang, this is expensive too. What you gonna do? I'll stay home. Well, dang, it's still expensive. How can you cheat the system as best as possible? So I decided that I was gonna go to community college and then transfer, and that's what I did. So I went to community college for 2 years, and I'm still paying off student loans. It ain't that much left, but the point is that it's just lingering. Like, there's 4 digits left. It's really not that much, but it's just like, we'll come back to the conversation of student loan forgiveness and stuff. Like, we'll come back to that. That's another conversation in itself. I'm saying these things so I can come back and like bookmark them Maybe I'll write them down. Like, okay, so I'm gonna talk about this. So I'll talk about this, and then I'll see the tree, and then it'll branch off from there. So it's like, because I don't really expect anybody to watch this. It's just for me, I guess, for now. Anyway, so went to community college. Went for anthropology, which was a combination of my interest of like just culture and art history, things like that. Then I transferred over and finished it off. The month that I graduated, the month that I graduated was when the crisis happened. Like, it was March of 2007, and I was looking for a job just like everybody else who just graduated, a job to start to pay off my loans, because anything entry level like required an experience. You didn't have the experience, or it was always some catch-22 situation. You need experience for a job, but you can't get a job because you don't have experience. And your first payment might be coming up soon, so you have to defer, and you're paying $20 like a month for like 2 years. And then when you finally get a job, it's like part-time. That happened for a while. And it's true that the jobs that you get when you're younger, even if you don't want them to, they kind of push you towards like a trajectory where it's like, you might be interested in this, but you have experience in this, so these two things are gonna combine. And then, so anyway, that's what happened. Where it's like, I was working like after school programs and stuff like that, summer camp stuff, and then eventually I became like a before and after school coordinator kind of thing for a very short time, because I was the kind of person where like I learned very quickly, and I work really hard because I don't like to disappoint people. And because of that, people see that as leadership skills. And so often, a lot of times, I was asked to do a lot of stuff prematurely that I really didn't want to do, but I just figured, you need insurance, you need to pay for your stuff. And so, how people are looking for a full-time job right now. You telling me you got insurance, you got retirement for, like, take it. So the plan was to go to grad school. That's another story. And so I'm like, Candace, how are you gonna get your foot in the door? Because what I really wanted to do, I wanted to get my foot in the door like as a docent or work at a museum. You couldn't tell me nothing. I was getting ready to be in the Egyptology section of the San Diego Museum of history or whatever it was. I forget. The one in Balboa Park. Like, you couldn't tell me nothing. I'm about to get my foot in here. Are you kidding me? I don't care if I'm sleeping on the floor. I got into some things very naive. I will say I'm grateful for it, but it was something else where it was like, I'm working at this museum at the same time. It's a museum of Black history in San Diego, and we would do things like read newspapers and archive information and stuff. It was a new little place. And then, a year later, it'd be like a San Diego Black Film Festival, and the people who own the museum, well, one of them was quite a famous person. Well, I said it, so it's like you can look it up and probably find out what museum I'm talking about. But I got to experience things like handling beta for films and stuff, and people like Michael Jai White would come over, and he had this film called Three Bullets, And we were apparently, we would sit in a room, me and my two of the colleagues, and watch these films. Be like, yeah, this was good, this was good, and we would actually handle the beta. So we go to the museum, we go to the theater, and we would be behind the scene and put the beta on, and play the movie, you know, um, and like rotate different duties and stuff. And it was just for me to get exposed, but at the same time, they did they tried to do things like traveling exhibitions and stuff. So the dream was to get um, the head of anthropology, who was working on excavating this site in California that had to deal with um, a man named Nate Harrison, and essentially, like, I'm gonna give him the wrong title, but the image of like a black cowboy. I can't remember if it was Ramona or whatever. I should remember wherever he was from. I can't remember my own city, my own state. And they found out he lived in like this mountain, and he was accepted by society, and they called him the N-word Nate. That was his nickname. And I was like fascinated. I was like, if I can get, this to work, that'd be amazing, to work with the head of anthropology and to be in a museum and to be able to teach the history. And then a lot of embarrassing things happened. So embarrassing. And because of that, it kind of tarnished my relationship with the head of anthropology. And at the same time, it's like, I'm trying to get back into school, but I know, because I was talking to him, I was like, I want to do this, I want to get some field work. And I thought about it. I'm like, Candace, listen, you haven't even started paying off your student loans for 2 years. How you gonna go and get a master's and put another $40,000-$50,000 on top of that? During this recession, do you see what's happening? In my soul, it was like, I know people are they're going straight, PhD, blah, blah, blah. They're doing all these double major stuff, and I feel like, damn, this should be me, you know. Um, but at the same time, it's like the reality, Candace, like, for you, maybe, I don't know. It was a lot. It was a lot to think about, to consider. Ah, and around this time, I would say I had my official first boyfriend, you know, and that might have been a distraction. I doubt it though, because I was still doing what I was supposed to. I'm a very stubborn person. I'm very stubborn, and because of who I am and what I look like, I hate to keep saying that. I hate to keep saying, but it's true. It keeps coming back. It's just like I know I have to protect myself extra. And then here comes the trope of, the strong black woman, which we don't really want that, but we understand that we don't really have the space to make mistakes like other people do. And because of that, there's this notion that we are uptight, or it's like, no, I just understand that if you can use me, if you feel we are a liability to you, we're gonna get swept under the rug. And because of that, we are much tighter because we have to be in order to survive. It's ridiculous, but it's the truth. I have story upon story upon story. Some of us are exceptions, and some of us really gone through it. I'm one of the ones that has like moderately gone through it. Enough so where it changes how, the social dynamic, how you interact with people. It's not that I don't trust you, but I don't trust you. And once like, the term red flag wasn't even created yet before I was like, I see. This is, you're selfish. And if you're going to do this with this person, then I realize, And so I think this, all these things come together, and this is like, like I said, anthropology is a very broad term, and You can go into physical anthropology, culture anthropology. You can do archaeology, linguistics, and stuff. I just feel like I truly am an anthropologist at heart. I just don't have the title because my mind just be thinking about stuff. Like I be looking at people, and it's what it's called the emic versus the edict. So emic, if I'm correct, means that you're in a society and you are a part of society. You participate in society. You don't really question the structure. You don't really question the functions of the structure. Nothing. You just go along with the rules, kind of thing. And then like edict is like if you take your body, it's like an out of body experience, rip yourself out and put yourself on the outside circle of society and look into it, and then you can see the lines of the different structures and how things play out and the hierarchies and all this other kind of stuff. And it's just like, I'd be darned. Like, you start to think of things differently. So sometimes I really try to turn it off, but most of the time it ruins things for me. Because if people cannot see themselves outside of the box and be like, I just want to live. Like, ignorance is bliss is the term. Like, I envy people who I I'm not jealous. I'm not a jealous person, but I do envy people who are able to just do stuff and don't think about the consequences of it because they have this notion that they're going to be taken care of. We'll come back to that. I'm on a tangent again. Anyway, society. What's to talk about? Holy moly. Yeah, school. Going back to grad school and stuff like that. Anyway, yeah, the interaction there was ruined, and it was like, no, I kept holding off. No, hold it off, hold it off. And then I almost joined the military because I was like, well, since it's the recession, it speaks volumes. The military is always hiring, right? So it's like, with that, it was like, you get insurance. You have to remember, this is the age of Obamacare. So I was just at that turning point where it was like, he extended the care, and I didn't have insurance, but I was able to stay on my parents' insurance. And I remember toothaches, and I was like, I can't imagine. Like the last year that I was on it, I had a horrible toothache. I remember my mom taking me to the dentist, and I'm thinking to myself, can you imagine if I did it? So people come for him because I lived in the age of Obama. When people come for him, I'm just thinking, oh my God, I'm so grateful you did that because I would have suffered. So when it comes to making decisions, say, dang, I need insurance. Well, the military got you. Now, I skipped over some things, but I always told myself, this is before I started dating, before anything, because the psychologists are going to come for me. But uh, I always knew that I wasn't going to stay in the United States for the rest of my life, or I was going to be traveling. The anthropology thing, right? I just knew I was going to be in Mexico. It was either because I had studied Spanish, and at the time I was fluent. Not fluent anymore. Don't ask. I mean, I'm from San Diego, for God's sake. If you're not learning Spanish, what are you doing with your life? So, um, I was like, it's gonna be Spain, Mexico, Panama, or it's gonna be Japan. Japan is in probably top 5, but on the lower rung. The reason for Japan is because of my nerdicity. It's because of just like every other foreigner, they call us gaijin over here. Just like every other gaijin, there was something there that influenced them. But for me, the genesis was Karate Kid, and I didn't realize it was Karate Kid. I was like, oh, that's why you like bonsai, Dad, because we would do bonsai and stuff, and it was a culture thing. It wasn't, oh, this is from Japan. This is what we did every day. It's what we did every day, and it was a part of our kind of like meditation where things was crazy, but we would always do bonsai. And my dad, he'd get all crazy and philosophical, so he'd be joking around. But looking back on it, it's like, Dad, like, bro, you should have just lived in Japan. Like, you would have made it. You would have been all right. Between that and fishing, you know. And I hate this. I'm not trying to be a trope here, but as far as that kind of life, like the Inaka life, like the country life and stuff like that, Dad would have made it. He would have been all right. So that was the genesis of me in Japan. And on top of that, it was, of course, the language and the cultural influences that have had occurred over the PlayStation days and the Toonami days and the Crunchyroll days and stuff like that. All these things came into power. So it was either a Spanish speaking country or it was Japan. And so I'm looking at the time, see if I got enough time because I'm recording and I want to upload. So um, yeah, what was I talking about? Yeah. Well, if I join the military, it's highly probable. If I ask or request, maybe they'll send me to Iwakuni or some, place in Japan. That'd be cool. I'd be knocking out a lot of birds with a stone. Being that my significant other was also from Japan, that kind of swayed me over more to Japan than it would Mexico and Spain, for example, obviously. And so I took the ASVAB. I remember I got an 88 in the ASVAB. And then after that, it was like, wait, I got a degree. I want to go in as an intelligence officer. I had to take the ASTB test. And they were like, it was so official. It was like, you got 3 times in your life to take this test. Whether you are a civilian or you're military, doesn't matter. You got 3 chances to take this test. And I was like, word up. Like, I gotta get out of here. So I studied for it, and my dad was proud or whatever because he was in the military. And I studied like 3 months. And I took the test. They had to drive me to the base. It was so official. Took the test, and I made a passing grade. But because it's the height of the recession, when I tell you the cream of the crop was there, we talking about kids who just finished, they just finished high school, and they just finished discrete. I took discrete. I don't remember it. Discrete, like, they're fresh, everything. So if they have the pickings, they're going to take in their quota, and they're going to fill that quota up with the best. So I wasn't the best for them at the moment. And then I applied for it again. And then I was like, oh, I'm tired. I don't want to do this right now. I said, I'm going to cancel it because I'd rather wait and take it again when I'm refreshed. All these doors open and it's driving me crazy. I live in a share house. I'll talk about it later. That's another story. I'm not crazy. I promise you. A little crazy, but I'm not. But it's a long story. What was I talking about? Yeah. So I canceled it. I called them. I was like, you know what? I said I was going to take the test, but I'm not going to take it because I'm a little exhausted. They were like, what's your score? And I told them. They were like, oh, that's a passing score. Go ahead and submit your package. They call it a package. The truth is, they probably met their quota, and then when I called them, they probably had it open again. But I wanted to get an intel. They were trying to tell me, you want to be an intel officer, you need to do this and such and that. And the fact that my significant other was also Japanese, I'm pretty sure, like, I was going through a lot of extensive background check because they ask you, are you going to marry this person? Are you going to be, I was like, probably, and because of that, they kind of put you, like, kind of bookmark you and, like, making sure that for safety reasons or whatever, that this person is not blah, blah, blah. Like, okay, I understand. But I never took it again. Because I was guaranteed a spot by an English speaking company. So I accepted the position. It took me a year from the time of interviewing. I had rented a car. I drove to LA. I did the demonstration lesson, and I don't drive freeways. I drove to LA in a boat. It was one of these big old cars, like I want to say name like a Chrysler, like a Chevy. It was really big, heavy, like a tank. I'm 5'3". I was scared. I got the car from downtown San Diego, and I don't drive downtown San Diego. And the first thing I did was actually go the wrong way down one way street. I was like, oh, and I backed up, and then I just totally relied on technology to take me where I needed to go. I was terrified because it was bringing me out of my element, but I did what I had to do. It's a long story. So yeah, it took a few months for me like, okay, we like you, come on. Like, okay, cool. They were like, where are you gonna go? I'm like, I'm going to Tokyo. The plan was to live in Tokyo. So they're like, yeah, we're gonna send you to Sendai. Okay, keyword Miyagi, Sendai. You should pause this video right now and look up Miyagi Sendai and the things that happened there. So 2 weeks before I left, I'd already bought my ticket. I was working my part-time jobs. At the time, my car had broke down. My engine block cracked. So either I was going to take the money I had for the ticket and buy an engine block, or I was going to buy a bus pass. And what usually took me 20 minutes to get to work took me 3 hours. Was I going to spend it on a plane ticket, or was I going to spend it on an engine block? I got the ticket. And I made sure to get insurance on it too. Okay, come back to that. Maybe I'll save this story for another time. Long story short, the tsunami and the earthquake happened in Miyagi Sendai. And it was the week before I left for Miyagi Sendai. And thousands of people died. Thousands of people died. And I sat there on the couch, because I slept on the couch at the time, and I watched it roll in live, and I was shook. I bought insurance for the ticket, but it wasn't covered by natural disasters. So I lost the ticket. Then Fukushima blew up, and because of that, it wasn't considered a natural disaster. There were no flights going into Tokyo. I had a week window to get a refund on my ticket, and so I did. It's more to this story, but anyway, it took me a year and a half to get here. And in the week I got here, I had the worst toothache. Because I didn't have insurance, I couldn't go. I had to wait a certain amount of time to settle in. It takes like a week or something for the card to come in, so that you can start going to the doctor or whatever. I remember laying on the floor. I had the worst toothache for like 2 days. I couldn't even it was so bad. And when I got that card and I went to the dentist, it was the proudest moment of my life at that time, because I was like, I can pay for myself, to be healed. Mind you, now we'll talk about other stuff like physical ailments and stuff that comes along with this body, such as endometriosis and fibromyalgia and other things that I've had to take care of for myself. That would have cost me an arm and a leg in the States. So like, there's a lot of heartbreak in the story. A lot of really hard decisions that I had to make. But there are also a lot of things that I have benefited from being here, like especially medically, that there's no way that anyone would have been able to support me back at home like this. I had to do it for myself. So I just went, I don't know where this story went. I'm just glad I'm not having a panic attack anymore. I'm glad that I'm feeling better when I recount my story the way that I see it, I guess. It helps me put things in perspective and try not to be so anxious. Damn. I mean, darn. My hopes. Um, are just to continue to be healthier. I've gotten a lot healthier um, over the last year because I was struggling. I mean, I was struggling the last 2 or 3 years. I was struggling mentally. My hope is just to continue to be healthy and try to let go of a lot of things that are ailing me and irritate me and trigger me. That's what I hope for. And I hope to save money because, tragedies happen and, emergencies happen, and I need to be able to prepare for that. And I hate to think that way. It's like I should say, I just want to live and I want to be selfish and I want to go to Bali and stuff like that. And, I hope to do all those things, I guess. But anyway, I'm out of here. Thanks for helping me soothe my panic attack. Hopefully new stories will come soon. Peace.